So 12 years ago, Auburn's Pro Day allowed Cam Newton to hit the reset button after a rough NFL combine. Now 12 years later, he returns to the scene, looking for one last reset after a tough couple of years. But if he did make a comeback, it would likely have to be a completely different Cam from the one we've seen before. To actually pull this off, bro, it's highly unlikely, but it's really not completely unprecedented. There's been at least one other quarterback to reach crazy heights early, fall off, and then reinvent himself later in his career. This is done by following the football equivalent of what Michael Jordan did at later stages of his career. From his high-flying acrobatic moves on young legs to that slow, post-up, jab step type of game. Now, the prime football example is probably Randall Cunningham. He wasn't MVP like Cam, but during his first 10 years, he was a 3-time Pro Bowler. During that time, he was also a 2-time second-team All-Pro and Comeback Player of the Year as well. And the reason Cam should be trying to follow his career is because just like Cam, he accomplished those things as a dual-threat quarterback. So in 1990, he finished just a little short of 3,500 passing yards and 1,000 rushing yards. The very next year, he tore his ACL, and predictably, never was the same after that. The injury took away a lot of his speed and athleticism, and more nagging injuries would derail his career. He was relegated to a backup role, which kinda pissed him off, and in 1995, he retired from the league. Now, I know that's not exactly what happened to Cam, but it's so similar, there's no way you don't see it. Randall sat out 1 year, and then he made a comeback. He sat out in 96, Cam sat out in 2022, but in 1997, Randall returns to the league after a year away where his nagging injuries had a chance to heal. Then, and finally, this is what I'm trying to build to, in 1998, he was a completely different player. So he only runs the ball 32 times that whole season for a grand total of 132 yards. A long way from the near 1,000 yards he gained when he was younger, but if you think his comeback was unsuccessful, you couldn't be more wrong. This man leads Minnesota to a 15-1 record, throwing for 3,700 yards and 34 touchdowns. He finished the season with a 106 passer rating, which is good. How good? It was the highest in the league. He makes his 4th Pro Bowl, his only first-team All-Pro, as he found a way to transition into his old man game. Now, he happened to be throwing to Randy Moss and Chris Carter, and I'm not sure how many situations like that is really out here for Cam. But Randall was around Cam's age right now when that happened, so it's unlikely but not impossible in the right situation. Alright, real quick before we jump into the video, a quick word from today's sponsor, Raycon. Raycon offers premium audio at the perfect price point, so you can build great habits without breaking the bank. They offer a great quality pair of everyday earbuds, and they start at half the price of other premium brands. Most days after I spend way too many hours in this dark room, I go and ride my beach cruiser for some sun and some exercise. I'll turn all the way around if I forget these at the house. They're essential. This has become my favorite time to wear my Raycons. Because of that, bro, I swear by the awareness mode feature, because it allows me to hear cars and everything going on around me. To activate awareness mode, you hold a button on the right earbud. Hold it down for 3 seconds and that's all there is to it. You can also raise and drop the volume by single tapping these buttons. You can answer calls with a double tap and the call quality is crispy. Ready to buy something small with a really big impact? Click the link in the description to get your Raycons today. Or just go to buyraycon.com/FlemLo and get 15% off of your Raycon purchase. Man, shout out to Raycon once again for sponsoring the video. Without further ado, it's time to jump back in. Just this past year, we saw Geno Smith have a resurgence, and he ended up playing the best ball he's actually ever played. Cam wouldn't need to be better than MVP Cam, but he'd have to be a whole lot better than his more recent showings. I don't think he can do that as old Cam trying to be young Cam, and I know he's been putting in work, but there's one thing that makes me nervous. Has he taken the time to step outside of his comfort zone? You don't need strength and conditioning, you need skill development. I feel like every quarterback should go see Jordan Palmer, or somebody that does a very similar job to Jordan Palmer. Josh Allen took his tools and got the best coaching possible. Both Jordan Palmer and Brian Daboll. Who Cam gets in the league, he's got a lot less control over, but his outside trainers he can absolutely choose. And like I say, it's not a matter of him putting in work, but I often wonder if he's working on the right things. I know for a fact Cam got enough to still play, but he doesn't have enough to play the game like he used to. Playing the same style but giving me 60% of Superman just won't get it done. You gotta approach this thing differently. People still think Cam's too much of a star to be a backup. They think he'd cause a distraction with his mere presence alone. So he's been stuck in this weird ass limbo where he still wants to play, he's still good enough to be on the team, but no team currently thinks he's good enough to start. And he seems to be approaching it with this weird Ricky Bobby, if you ain't first you last type of attitude for some reason. You gotta let that go. If you are top 32, just accept the backup role and work your way back up. That's what Geno Smith did. Hell, that's what Baker Mayfield did. And I know you was an MVP, but you're at a different stage in your career. Those guys fell almost immediately into stopgap quarterback. You spent real time as a star, reaching the league's highest heights. Now it's time to adjust your game if you still want to play. Spend some time as a backup and fine-tune your skills. Hopefully, man, this video doesn't come off the wrong way. I'm a huge Cam Newton fan. I got videos all over the channel. But right now, he's an old man trying to play a young man's style. But those days are over, and that's okay. Develop your old man game. Post up or fade away.